you. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. My name is Eddie D'Souza.
And I'm Jessica Myrna.
Welcome to You're the Star. Today in the studio we have Floyd Tolman, and it's a real honor to have Floyd in the studio with us today. He's been one of my heroes ever since the 80s when I was touring around with Julia. We stopped in and he was always at the Moby Dick, I think, for 9 years. So thank you very much for coming in, Floyd.
That's my pleasure, Eddie.
Hey.
It's good to see you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, Floyd, maybe we'll start off. Just, can you tell us why you moved to Canada?
Well, I first came in 1977. I was a bass player and backup singer with a band from Las Vegas. I was born in Utah, but I grew up in Utah and Montana. And where we lived in Montana was close to the Alberta border. So I lived close to Canada, but I didn't know that much about it. And I always kind of wanted to come up here. I come up when I was 7 years old to Banff. But when I had a chance to come up and do a tour with a band from Vegas, I jumped at it. But you know how musicians can be. So the band didn't last. It was a short-lived thing. But I really liked it up here. People treated me really good. And especially Alberta, because Alberta is a lot like Montana, you know, farmers and ranchers, and I was kind of like, I spoke their language. Mm-hmm. And then the next year, that was 77, the next year, 78, I came back up as a single, just playing rhythm guitar and electric beatbox for about 5 months or so. And then the next year, 79, I came back with a friend of mine from Texas by the name of Eddie Trammell, and we played the Moby Dick Inn the Billy Barker here in Quesnel. And we were here in the summer, and during Billy Barker days, and we played on the hotel float in the parade. We just had a ball, and I loved it. And that's where I met my wife here in Quesnel. And then we got married, and then I've been here off and on ever since.
Oh, wow. You've been traveling. So why are you now driving truck instead of playing music?
Well, in '86, remember that was the Expo year, I booked a 2-week gig at the Moby Dick Inn in Prince Rupert with my band, and they held us over for 9 years. So, and then after the job finally ended, you know, new owners, different ideas, I was getting kind of burnt out with the bar scene, and I developed nodules on my vocal cords. You know, that happens a lot with singers sometimes. And there is an operation where you can have it removed, but the doctor told me it would be best if I just quit singing for 6 months or a year. And my wife wanted to move back to Las Vegas. She liked it there. So we moved to Vegas, and that's when I started driving truck. And I drove 5 years for Dick Simon Trucking out of Salt Lake City, running just the lower 48. And then my wife wanted to move back to Quesnel, and so I got a job with Vic Hoskins Trucking going between Seattle and Alaska for about 5 years. And I worked good, but I wasn't home much, just passing through. Mm-hmm. And so about 4 years ago, I went to work for OTH, a local trucking company here in Quesnel, so I could be home on the weekends.
Right. Okay. And so, like, you've obviously had a beautiful career with music, and can you maybe tell us a bit of your highlights?
You remember 1971, a song called Brandy, A Looking Glass?
Mm-hmm. You're a fine girl.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to refresh anybody's memory, it goes, there's a port on a western bay, and it serves 100 ships a day. And the chorus goes, and the sailor said, Brandy, you're a fine girl. What a good wife you would be. Remember that?
I sure do.
Yeah. The lead singer for Looking Glass, his name was Jimmy Grimaldi, and he went by different aliases at different times. But him and I hooked up in Las Vegas in '75, and we did a duo together called The Hippie and the Cowboy. We played a lot of just dives around town and outskirts of town. And then we did play 2 good places. We played the Casbar Lounge in the Sahara Hotel.
Sahara.
Yeah, and we played the Landmark Hotel, which was a popular hotel at that time. It's not there anymore. They blew it up, but... So anyway, that was one highlight. But my biggest highlight was I always wanted to do a album in Nashville, and I finally had a chance to do that in 1989. It was actually a bit of a rip-off thing because it was through a record company out of Toronto, and they were kind of a fly-by-night deal. And the deal was I would pay for the production, and they were going to promote it, but they didn't keep up their end of the bargain. But I did get a wonderful recording out of it.
That's right. It's a beautiful album.
Yeah, and some well-known musicians, and so I'm happy with that. And the other highlight would be the Moby Dick gig. You know, it's unusual for a musician to have a steady job for 9 years.
It sure is, yeah.
Well, it was good that you did, though.
Yeah.
It kept you busy, and you got to do what you love to do.
Right.
That's a lot of people's dreams. I know I always wanted to have a job playing music.
Right.
And being in one place.
Yeah.
Floyd, you got some pictures here.
Okay, this is me with Ray Morrison. He used to play steel for the Midnight Rodeo Band. He's a fine steel guitar player. I played with him for a while. And this is me and Eddie Trammell. He's from Texas. Him and I were playing together the first time I came to Cornell. These are a few guys I played with. Gary McBurney from Cornell and Gary Moberg, my lead guitar player. It's the guy Eddie knows, Hank Perez. He's one of the finest jazz musicians I've ever played with.
Lefty.
Lefty, yeah. He played a right-handed guitar upside down and backwards.
Yeah. Amazing player.
Yeah. Okay, just a little promotion picture of me when I was promoting some records. There's a current picture of me in my truck.
That's quite the rig, eh?
Yeah, it's a nice truck. But, I don't know why I'm doing that. Brain damage. And this is a promotion picture I had.
The whole thing?
So, yeah, poster I made when I was doing a single one-piece band that was taken up at the Alaska Highway. It was cold that winter. And this is when I played at the Moby Dick for 9 years. They put an ad in the paper thanking us. And this is just it's kind of a nice gesture, you know.
So when writing songs, where do you get your inspiration from?
My main inspiration is spiritual. You know, I grew up in a very religious family, and we always sang religious songs. And in my late teens and early 20s, I fell away from religion, and I didn't go to church, but I still had that inspiration. It was probably my biggest influence, but I didn't even realize it at the time until years later when I started coming back to church, and I realized that's where I was at from the beginning. That was my main inspiration. My other inspiration is my brother-in-law. His name is Glenn Fuller. He married my oldest sister, and when I was about 8 years old, he used to come around, play his guitar, and sing old cowboy yodeling songs, and he was my hero. So I tried to copy him.
And Floyd, one last question, if you could maybe pass on some words of advice to some up-and-coming stars.
Don't do what I did.
which was?
Which was?
Quit.
No. I've always had a bad habit of jumping into things with both feet without being prepared. Mm-hmm. And I spent a lot of years messing around, beating my head against the wall, not knowing what I was doing, you know. But if I took a few years to learn the trade, just like any trade, like when I first started playing, I thought I was doing good. You know, I got a good response from the audience, and I knew about 3 chords or 4 or 5. And I thought I did good. But I didn't realize, in the meantime, the real musicians were making fun of me behind my back, you know, because I was a crappy musician, you know. But it didn't dawn on me until I met Sandy Erickson. Remember him?
Sandy, yeah, you mentioned him.
He was the first really good musician that took a real interest in me and taught me. And he just opened my mind to the whole world of music. And after that, I always hired good musicians, much better than me. Oh. And so that would be my advice, other than don't give up, is learn your trade before you get into it. Yeah.
I like every time that we ask that question, everybody has always a different answer. It's kind of the same, but it's always different.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. So, Jessica, what did you introduce the videos?
You can.
All right, folks, we're going to break away to some of Floyd's videos right now.